Welcome back. This is Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Your contributions will be, of course, later on sampled in the course of this broadcast. And this morning we'll be taking a look at a report which was issued by the Missing Voices and documented the 113 cases of police killings in Kenya, cases of enforced disappearances, and also a report which was yesterday corroborated by Amnesty International, which issued also its update with regards to the killings across the country. We'll be taking a look at the details of these reports, and also with regards to the partnership that was provided by the International Commission of Jurists, Kenya section, the Heinrich Böll Stiftung, and the Kenya Human Rights Commission, Amnesty International, Haki Africa, Muhuri, which is Muslims for Human Rights, the Defenders Coalition, the Justice, Truth and Dignity, and also Human Rights Watch, that will be taking a look at this morning here on the broadcast. On my far right is Commissioner John Waiganjo. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Thank you. With the Independent Policing and Oversight Authority, IPOA. Andrew Camille on my immediate right is an advocate. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Commentator on social and economic political affairs. At the center is Wanjiru Wanjira. She is the co-founder, Mathare Social Justice Center. Good morning. Lovely to have you here. Shukri Wachu is seasoned journalist who has also reported extensively on cases of extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances. He is the current liaison officer between the ICJ Kenya and Missing Voices Initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, your time is all appreciated. What a time to have this discussion that is so timely and appears to be the common denominator in all aspects if you look at it with regards to how we are facing this very problematic issue. And we'll be talking more about that. Shukri, coming to you. You have covered extensively in the course of your journalism career, and now as the link between ICJ Kenya and the Missing Voices Initiative. 113 2023, 111 2022. 2 lives, but too many, is it?
I think, Ayub, you mentioned earlier that Kenya really has a dark history when it comes to policing and its relationship with the citizenry. And during its various iterations, pre-independence, when Kenya, the police was still being referred to as a police force, we saw the changes that were brought forth by the Constitution 2010 when it became a service, hoping that it would improve the relationship between police and citizenry. However, we continue to see that the relationship between the two entities is still contentious. Yeah. And you mentioned the onus and the responsibility that is on the state. Before the launch of this report, we saw earlier this year a very senior government official saying that police brutality and excessive force does not exist in the country. That's actually a travesty and a mockery of people that are fighting against police brutality, victims, to human rights defenders and organizations. I think the numbers are very clear. And when you look at, albeit in this particular report that is under the theme of End Police Impunity, yeah, you will hear that there was at least a 9.2% drop in the cases of police brutality and cases of killings and extrajudicial enforced disappearances. But what the numbers do not say is that there's also a change of tact in terms of how the police officers operate. Because in studies that are currently ongoing, there are cases whereby you'll see that mobs are actually being used to kill people. So when it comes to monitoring and reporting these cases, it becomes very difficult, because when the cases are reported, you will hear that this was a case of mob injustice that was committed by particular people. But even the targeting of the marginalized communities and people across our country, it's really a huge concern, because you'll start to notice that the youth are actually being targeted, students are being targeted, people working in the informal sector, particularly in the border in the matatu industry. Okay. So these are concerns that are really, that continue to plague the sector. And I think that it will be a mistake and a mockery to say that police brutality does not really occur in this country.
And who is that leader who said it doesn't exist?
The Prime Cabinet Secretary, actually, when he was in, I think he was attending the African Union Executive Council on foreign affairs ministers.
Yeah,
that is a proclamation he made earlier this year.
Okay.
And it's actually a mockery to what we are trying to,
to talk
about.
We will have time to expound on those issues because I also need to come back to you and Commissioner Waiganjo.
Courts of law, which are courts of
evidence. Shukri, coming to you. Looking at the age bracket of most victims, 18 and 35. This is worrying, isn't it, as a society, and this should worry us?
It's really worrying because even, but before I proceed, I'd just like to say that sometimes you cannot relegate every statement by a government official as purely political, because you have to look at the severity of the words and the platform whereby the Prime Cabinet Secretary was talking about these issues. This is a regional platform, and the words he says really hold power. And as I earlier said, it's really a disservice to people that are actually working hard to ensure that this menace is actually a thing of the past. But in terms of the numbers and the age bracket, it's shocking to imagine that the youth are actually the people that are most targeted in these operations. The age bracket of those killed is between 19 and 35. And when you look at the data on the operations that are being conducted by police, if I can go through them, you look at anti-crime killings at 58 in the 2023 report. You have anti-terror killings at 1, anti-poaching at 2, anti-riot 45, that was obviously during the maandamano, the nationwide protest we saw on the cost of living in the country, and GBV cases at 5 as well as 7, that was under unclear circumstances. Ayub, I think this is really worrying because, as we've said, it seems that police officers are actually changing tact in terms of how they're operating. When you look at the demographics of the people being targeted, we spoke of people in the informal sector, matatu operators, boda operators, students. And I think the worrying thing, and we've spoken about accountability, and Commissioner will be the first one to say from ICJ point of view, you've actually engaged with my Executive Director, Dimas Kiprono, and Program Managers Julie Wayo and Vincent Kimathi, and we will be the last one to say that you've not really championed for accountability. But it is worrying, Ayub, when you look at the figures, 128 people killed or forcibly disappeared. So that is 118 killed, 10 and forcibly disappeared. We do not know where they are. Yet, when you look at the statistics of those that have been arrested, police officers, it is at 5. 113 still rendering their duties. No charges have been preferred against them so far. And the 5 that we've managed to document as missing voices, they're actually cases of gender-based violence where officers have actually been involved in altercations with their loved ones, and unfortunately it ended in death. So I think a lot needs to be done, and these are some of the concerns that we continue to raise. And I believe that particularly when you look at those demographics, those are things that need to come out to the fore. And even when we talk about the change of tact, you work with communities at the grassroots level. When you hear change of tact, there's increasing cases of people that are being killed by either informers of police or mob justices. And as I said earlier, when you try to cover and report on these things and try to collect data on the same, it becomes very difficult because the police will say, look, this is not us. This was actually citizens that did this and killed people. But those are some of the tactics that they continue to do. And unfortunately, there's debate and discussions on whether there's a soft approach being used or adopted by police officers. So those are some of the concerns that are being used. But it will seem that the numbers might be significantly higher.
Okay.
The Missing Voices Coalition and ICJ Kenya have actually made several recommendations to various duty bearers within the criminal justice system. The National Assembly, ODPP, the judiciary, and part of what Commissioner is talking about is actually, we've made recommendations to the National Assembly calling for the amendment of the IPOA Act just to expand their mandate in terms of what he was saying, because there seems to be a lot of bottlenecks in terms of them rendering their mandate. But Commissioner, you also spoke of the working relationship you have with the ODPP. And I know that part of the challenge, and it's part of our recommendations actually, is we've called for the development of ODPP guidelines on the investigations of extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances in particular. So it seems that that is where the problem lies, because you might conduct your investigations and submit your file to the ODPP, but that is where the challenge is.
Yes,
the problems that.
Yes, Shukri, before some hold the feedback.
I think Commissioner Oganjo raises some very interesting points, and I remember when I was in the newsroom covering some of the reforms within the National Police Service, and I think it was during the tenure of Joseph Boynet. They introduced a new police curriculum, and it seems that there are glaring gaps, and I hope that maybe they can be resolved. But at the end of the day, it's the end of the day. And I will imagine the individual sitting here, we also don't want to paint a very gloomy picture of events that are happening. We've seen accountability from IPOA's side. Obviously, it can always be improved. We've also seen police officers that are trying to do great work within our communities. And I think it's important to mention that the Maraga-led task force report actually made several recommendations to try and address legal, policy, institutional, and operationalization challenges within the various formations. So I think that we've always had challenges when it comes to implementing these documents, because people say inakaa vizuri sana, but implementation is always lacking. So I guess that is where, if within the time frame of 3 years, if that report will fully be actualized and implemented, I think that the challenges we're seeing within the police service can probably be addressed.
Also, Shukri Wachu, seasoned journalist and extensively reported on cases of extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances. At the moment, he is the link officer between ICJ Kenya and the Missing Voices Initiative. Thanks to you too for working up with us here on the broadcast and your feedback here on the broadcast. The hashtag on X has been Daybreak. The SMS code 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir.